crops and problem resolved. Bonide guarantees it. Pick up Bonide Repels All at all 4 Oakland Nursery Garden Centers. All natural Bonide and Oakland Nursery, your partners in green.
Spring has arrived. Kurtz Brothers wants to support our local community and make it possible for you to do so too. Take 38% off your order of bulk or bagged mulch, soil and leaf compost, or pay retail price. They'll mail you a Visa card worth 38% off. Spend it at local businesses. Use code KBCARES when you visit kbcolumbus.com. KB for Kurtz Brothers. That's kbcolumbus.com and use code KBCARES or call 614-43-MULCH and mention this offer.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Your station for news, traffic, and weather in Central Ohio. News Radio 610 WTVN Columbus. WODC HD2 Asheville. An iHeartRadio station.
For a COVID-19 vaccine.
Its objective is to finish developing and then to manufacture and distribute a proven coronavirus vaccine as fast as possible. Again, we'd love to see if we could do it prior to the end of the year.
Is that possible? ABC News contributor and infectious disease specialist Dr. Todd Ellerin.
If the question is, are we going to get injected by January of next year, that's very unlikely. But I will tell you, one thing to look at is the FDA just gave the green light for one of the companies in the U.S. that's manufacturing vaccines to go from the phase 1, that safety phase, to phase 2, which is a larger safety phase. Instead of looking at less than 50 patients, they're going to now inject 600 patients.
After hours of debate, the House passing a $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. It's apparently already doomed, says ABC's Chuck Severson.
It's the largest spending bill in U.S. history, nearly $1 trillion in relief for state and local governments, plus a second round of direct payments of $1,200 per person, an extension of unemployment benefits, more funding for testing, frontline workers, contact tracing, and mortgage and rent relief. The Republican-controlled Senate's rejected the bill as a liberal wish list. President Trump has called the measure dead on arrival.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she's open to negotiating the bill. And today, Pelosi condemning President Trump's decision to fire yet another official who played a role in his impeachment.
In a statement, Speaker Pelosi said State Department Inspector General Steve Linick was fired for, quote, honorably performing his duty to protect the Constitution and our national security. She called on the president to stop what she says is his, quote, pattern of reprisal and retaliation. During the impeachment probe of President Trump, Linick requested an urgent meeting with senior lawmakers to turn over documents. Mark Remillard,
Hey, Em, do you have
ABC
my
News.
last
And
commercial?
you're listening to ABC News.
In
Yep,
Dublin,
it'll be
Ohio,
Alan's
all
Coin
lanes of
Shop.
I-270 North are now closed after
And
a crash
then-
involving a semi
yep, we're
and
good to
another
go.
vehicle.
And I have that
At
one
least
last
one
line.
person was transported to the hospital. We're in
Don't
our
mess
first
it up.
weekend in
All
Ohio
right.
of outdoor bars reopening, and last night Columbus police responded to a bar in the Short North area after they say they received multiple calls on crowds. Police say people complained there were dozens of people gathered at Standard Hall's patio and not complying with social distancing. Cincinnati-based Kroger will provide thank you payments to hourly employees after a union outcry over the company ending a $2 per hour pay bump it implemented amid the coronavirus pandemic. The Kroger officials say that bonus payments of $400 and $200 for full and part-time employees will be paid in 2 installments in May and June. A growing number of conservatives are embracing a conspiracy theory that government-approved COVID-19 death tolls are inflated over various political reasons. Some reports suggest President Trump will soon endorse this murky theory as well. Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner Dr. Thomas Gilson says officials around the country are using the CDC guidelines in tallying COVID-19 deaths, and those rules are good, reasonable, and fair.
I think I've heard people talk about these, but I have to say my experience, especially locally, is that those are outliers. That's not really a reality that I think has any basis in truth. We're not hiding deaths. We're not over-reporting deaths.
Gilson maintains coroners and medical examiners are under no pressure to inflate nor underreport coronavirus deaths. However, he admits the death toll is not to be taken lightly. For more news, listen to The Daily Dive. The big news stories explained, not shouted. Listen to The Daily Dive each day on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I'm Macy Jepson.
Filling your news feed with the top trending news at the top and bottom of the hour. Columbus's news is on News Radio 610 WTVN.
To all Fresh Time communities, their shoppers, and all who have gone out of the way to show Fresh Time appreciation, thank you. Fresh Time is proud to serve you. Fresh Time Farmers Market. Real food, real values.
It's always fun for me when I go to Allen's Coin Shop. Run into so many different people doing so many different things. I mean, some people come to Allen's because they need a little scratch. Yeah, maybe they inherited a few pieces from dad or grandpa, or maybe it's just, look, I'm a little short this month, so here's a few things I need to sell so I can come up with some cash. And Allen's is always there for you on that. Other people like me looking to add to their collections. Maybe it's U.S. coins, it's world coins, it's gold, it's silver. I just want to paw through the big kettle of weed pennies, or I want to look deep in that world coin treasure chest. See what I can find. So many different ways to collect, and now 60 years, Allen's has been taking care of people in Central Ohio. So look, if you need a little money and you've got stuff to sell, stop by Allen's. Top prices, that's what they pay every day. And if you're like me and you're looking to add to your collection, shop online at allensinc.com, or do what I love to do, stop in the shop, State Street in Westerville, and see what they've got today. Allen's Coin Shop, serving collectors since 1960.
Keeping firearms out of the hands of criminals is how we stop violence in the streets. Period. It is not the safe, responsible gun owner committing the crimes. Wouldn't you agree? I'm yet to hear an argument otherwise. If this is what we know to be fact, then it seems to me that this should be our first priority in the gun debate conversation. Our system should be top-notch in making sure we do everything possible to make sure the bad guy in our society does not get a firearm. And if he does, man, should the full force of the law come down upon him. We live in a world with unbelievable technology, a technology where I can deactivate my credit card in seconds right from my phone, a world of technology where I can have a medical claim adjudicated at my doctor's office while I wait. You see, in these times, we have no excuse. No excuse for a system that takes 8 weeks to determine if a darn person has a criminal record that precludes them from owning a firearm. 8 weeks. Seriously? That is why an AR is on our streets today that came from our store. We did our part. We need to demand the system does its part. That's okay, because what are the ignorant politicians doing? What are they doing? Well, let me tell you what they're doing. We keep electing them, and they will continue to play on the uneducated, wanting to ban a bayonet lug or a flash hider or a high-cap magazine. Oh, that's okay, but we should not be surprised, because the same idiot who introduced the latest gun bill, well, is the same idiot who raised a concern with the Navy Admiral in a Senate hearing just a few years ago. His concern in this Senate hearing, well, Admiral, if we place too many troops on the island of Guam, it may tip over. Isn't that a concern? Unbelievable.
Live from LAPD Firearms Range and Training Facility, this is On Target, the latest from the firearms industry, the products and politics that affect your hobby and liberty. This program may not be politically correct, but it is On Target. Now, your host, Eric Delbert.
Good afternoon and welcome to On Target. I'm your host, Eric, joined today in the LAPD studios with all my friends sitting around me. That's it. I'm done. I'm going home.
Are you off your soapbox now?
You know what? I feel like Chevy Chase in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's just unbelievable. It's just, it mounts so much, and we do everything in our power to do it right here. And an AR is on the streets today because the darn system is broken. It's been broken. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So it's just incredible. It's incredible. So what do you guys?
No,
it's just.
I mean, we see this day in, day out. We see it on the news. Some of these ignorant, stupid laws that they introduce. That's not going to stop anything.
No, I feel like Glenn Beck. Like my head's going to explode, and I'm telling you, if it does, the mask is not going to be able to hold it all in.
Well, we're going to have to check your blood pressure, I think, here.
Huh? I know. It's incredible. Well, we
don't
are
have
the
to worry
owners.
about the people stealing guns from houses on the street when we can just give them away like that.
Give them away. 4,000 to 5,000 times a year, Ed, this happens.
4,000 to 5,000.
4,000 to 5,000 times a year, we are in the rear trying to go find these guns on the street after we've let them have them. Crazy. Unbelievable. We are the owners of LEPD Firearms Range and Training Facility and are active law enforcement. But for 1 hour on Saturdays, we put together a group of firearm experts to discuss new products in the market, training tips, and oftentimes political topics surrounding the Second Amendment. Our commitment, though, is to always bring you the facts about our industry and ultimately help our listeners and our customers with safe, responsible ownership of firearms. Today on the show, you asked and we listened. As we spoke about last week, I had an opportunity to meet one of our listeners in the automotive aisle at Myers a few weeks ago, Mr. Brooks, a fan of the show and a free Ed supporter. I don't know why you had to get that in there.
I think it's about time.
I'm seeing an undercurrent here now.
That's because they feel sorry for it.
I think the Ted shirt is coming out.
All right, we'll be watching for that. He said he would like to hear more about everyday common situations that CCW holders may encounter and how to handle them appropriately. And he had a good point because a lot of times, guys, we sit around and we talk about carrying a firearm like we've done for years and years, but we have a little bit of a different perspective on it. Being in law enforcement, there's a little bit different thinking when you go out there, and we're actually looking and having
a little bit different thinking, a little bit different responsibility.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So we thought we'd take a step back. We took some questions this week from listeners, and at 12:30, we're going to have our good buddy Derek DeBross call in and help us answer some of these questions, these common questions.
Good guy to call in.
Good guy to call in. Before that, JC has the Gun of the Week, sponsored by Jackson Egress Windows. JC, I'm just going to say this. The year your Gun of the Week was introduced to the world was the same year the Ford Thunderbird was introduced. The same year, Papa, Rock Around the Clock was popular on the radio stations. And Davy Crockett and Gunsmoke were just showing up in our culture.
No, wait a minute. And also the same time that the Smith & Wesson M2944 Magnum.
Yes, that is. You look at you, following.
Wow, you're on top of things.
Ed, let this be an example. I do show prep.
All right.
Okay.
I got you.
So how was that, JC? Is that pretty much?
That's pretty much it. You left out the Quaker Oats instant oatmeal also came out that year.
Really? Wow.
Great gun. Great gun. I'm excited about it.
That is coming up at 12:15. Before that, JC has some news of the day, and we'll get to that here shortly. I'd like to thank our sponsors, TTG Technologies, Toyota West, Jackson Lawn Care, and Egress Windows. Toyota West, Papa, aren't you picking up a new truck today?
I can. They finally have it ready. Toyota, as much as I like those trucks and everything, some years back, they took out the grab bar to get in the truck on the driver's side. How stupid is that? Now they have it on the passenger side, so now they're putting one in
for you.
Well, for me, but for a lot of other owners who wants those bars in.
And you can hang your cane right on that once you get in, right?
You laugh, Ed.
It is true, though. I know what you mean. Those sit so high and stuff. It would be nice to have that. Yep. The grab bar back there. So we thank them for being a sponsor. Blackwing Shooting Center are good friends over there. River's Edge Cutlery, CNS Engraving, and Clean Water System, all who make the show possible each week. Joining me today in the LEPD studios, JC. I'll tell you what, I am glad that our conversations, our show prep is not aired because it was pretty fired up today.
Well, it's pretty fired up today. When we get to this, House bill, the Congressional House Bill 5717, I think people will be fired up. So we won't be alone in that area.
Yep, and then my father, co-owner, sits to my left. Papa, I have in our little notes here, this is the time to air grievances. Last week, if you remember, we published the picture of the lady who...
no, we did not.
We did. We put it on Facebook.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, the video is on Facebook now. The lady throwing the dirty diaper out the door.
I thought you were going to save it for the show, and we were going to post it while we were on the show.
Well, no, we did it last week. Got a lot of good responses. Unfortunately, grievance part 2, the people. I'm being nice here.
Okay.
The people who continued to throw their used gloves and masks in the parking lot when they're done. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like to stop by and talk to them too. So
yeah. Yeah.
I'm all fired up today, Ed.
I
I'm
guess
sorry.
so. I guess so.
I'm sorry. That's
we're gonna
Big
have
Ed
to,
sits to my right.
Keep you tied up in your office for a little while so you
I think
calm
that's the
down.
problem. I've been hiding in the office. So they let me out on the Saturday.
Give you a couple of Tylenol and a bottle of...
I know. I'm really in a good mood, though, believe it or not.
Maybe a shot of bourbon to slow you down.
Now you're talking. If you missed the show, you can always catch the podcast. That's at 610WTVN.com. We're on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. Facebook Live, though, is a great place to watch the show. If you're watching the show on Facebook Live right now, JC, your gun of the week is right there in the frame. So you get to do a little preview of what the gun of the week is coming up. And it's also
one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's also archived out there, and so you can watch the show later on if you miss it live. With all of that said, JC, one other thing. After my admitting on air last week that I have never seen a James Bond movie, I got a little hate mail.
Yeah. Did you get your man card taken away?
I did. It's funny you should say that because one of our listeners, Greg from Northwest Ohio, he's up in Findlay listening to the show.
Right.
Left me a message. I got back to my office after the show. He's like, Eric, we need to talk. Do I need to send you down the videos? Or so I've made it an effort now. I'm going to get through them all.
Oh, you haven't even watched one
I
yet?
tried the other night, and it wasn't on Time Warner, so.
I thought he threatened to pull your man card.
He did.
He did threaten to do it.
He did, yes.
I'm going to have to help him do it. Don't you have Netflix?
Yes, but I don't know how to log in. That's on Luke's side.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So, so JC, what do you have for us this week? What House bill is out there?
Well, let me start out with some good news before we get into my blood pressure raising House bill. Our House of Representatives bill. But good news, the gun manufacturers out there, this is news you're not going to hear on national TV or anybody that's leftist, but gun manufacturers have really stepped up here. I love this phrase someone put out. They said the deadly spread of coronavirus may be a war without weapons, but that hasn't stopped gun manufacturers from aiding those on the firing line. I kind of like that. So here's what's going on. Sig Sauer stepped up and donated right off the bat like 15,000 N95 masks to 80 different law enforcement agencies and EMS. They started 3D printing plastic face shields to donate to the Medical Teams International. In April, Keltec, we talked about this a little, began 3D printing of N99 capable masks. Now, those are a little bit step up. They actually will take the screw-in canisters, and they found out a way to 3D print that, working with the Medical University of South Carolina. So they're designing those and putting those out. Smith & Wesson donated more than 5,000 face shields and 12,000 pairs of eye protection to frontline workers. And then they've stepped up their 3D production and now are turning out 1,000 face shields on a daily basis for the medical community across several states. Ruger donated 6,500 surgical masks, 700 Tyvek suits, N95 masks, and almost 5,000 safety glasses. And then they've redeployed their manufacturing and now putting out about 3,000 face shields for local hospitals. And we talked about how Remington had offered almost 1 million square feet of space in their vacant space in their factory in Ilion, New York, to be used for manufacturing. So, these aren't things you're going to hear in the news, but it's nice to know that, that when you support these companies and they're supporting the first line workers in this terrible fight of our invisible enemy. So that's good news. Oh, and speaking of Remington, just a quick one. They just announced a release of the R2 M1 50 caliber bolt action rifle. So that's just for Ed. So
that's a good one.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be very, very simple design, 10-shot magazine, and the thing is, it's about $4,600. So that's in the MSRP. So it looked really, really interesting. Okay, the big news, the blood boiling that could really have an effect if any of this goes through. This state of Georgia, he's a U.S. congressman, and his name was Hank Johnson until he made the comment in Congress about if they station 8,000 Marines at the end of Guam, wouldn't it tip the island up and capsize it?
How does somebody like
Tippy
that?
Johnson. So So again, this is a congressman.
How does
As
somebody like
congressman,
that
are
get
you
into
thinking
office, John? How does somebody like
it's-
that? I can't get
Well,
over
he's
that.
been reelected. I think he's been there since '95. It's just absolutely insane. Okay, so he came up with this crazy bill. However, I mean that's the small part of the story. We can laugh and go ha ha, but 18 or 17 other congressmen who are the cream of the anti-gun congressmen have jumped in supporting this bill, and they give it a nice little rubber ducky kind of a name that makes you feel soft and cuddly. They call it the Gun Violence Protection Act of 2020. But this is one of the most heinous acts. They said basically this is a European-style gun control in the U.S. in the worst way. We've all heard the horror stories of what happens in the European continent where you can't have anything. Well, that's what this does. This is they roll in everything possible. It is actually was introduced in January 30th at the end of the month, and it is now gaining its way through while everyone else is worried about COVID. This Gun Violence Protection Act 2020 is out there. So let me just give you some of the highlights. Number one, every gun owner in the United States would have to have a federal firearms owner's license. It would be a national registration of every gun owner. The process could take as long as 40 days to do your background check, your fingerprints, your photo ID. They have to be at least 21 years old to get this license, and you have to complete a firearms safety course and a written exam as well as hands-on demonstration ability, okay? Now, that all sounds good, and we're going, well, as far as that goes, I don't like this national registration aspect, but you'd have to be 21 years old to get this, okay? You are not allowed under the law to possess ammunition or firearms. That doesn't mean just own. It actually says own, sell, possess. I mean, you can't handle it until you're 21. So therefore, you've never practiced with a firearm, yet you have to have the ability to shoot it before they'll get the license. This is this catch-22 that you'll never be able to handle one or shoot one, but in order to get the license, you have to pass a proficiency test with one. So that's one of the picadillos of this law. Your license will be valid for 10 years. It's going to cost an arm and a leg. They didn't say what, but they're planning on bilking a lot of money out of there. Just some other real quick ones on this one. They actually have a federal tax would come with this on every handgun or rifle or shotgun of 30%, 30% excise tax. They would have a 50% tax on all ammunition. And what for? To support the furthering of the Gun Violence Protection Act, to training, to finding other ways to limit your ability to own these firearms. They list the guns that you can't own, which is almost everything. That's probably the worst part of the bill is what they list, and they've already done this. It's amazing. This bill is, you can view it online, folks, and it's H.R. 5717. It's 260 pages long, and a huge proportion of that is just listing all the guns that you will no longer be able to possess.
And JC, it's truly incredible that the stuff that's in there, and we'll have to link it on our Facebook page. But we got to jump to the break, and when we come back from the break, we're going to get to JC's Gun of the Week and talk a little bit more about this bill. We're on Target, broadcasting live from the studios of LAPD Firearms Range. We'll be right back after the break.
Can get it on my phone.
What temp you got there, Em?
68.
68. Hey, can you give us 30 seconds out before the music starts? Just let us know.
Before the music?
Oh, I'm sorry. Before weather?
The weather,
yep.
Yes.
Okay, bye.
half-inch pots are only $4.49 or 10 for $40. Green velvet boxwood are now $20. A 4-foot tall emerald green arborvitae sale priced at just $30. These are just a few of the spring specials you'll find on Strader's website at straders.net. Come and enjoy spring at Strader's Garden Centers.
In response to COVID-19, Erie Life has waived paramed requirements. If you are adverse to needles, now is your time to purchase Erie Life Insurance. Visit thaterieguy.com or call 614-899-1611.
Your ABC 6 first warning weather for today. Fog this morning, then a mix of sun and clouds for the afternoon. Warm and humid with a slight chance of showers later in the day, high of 78. Tonight, cloudy and mild with a few spotty showers likely, low of 61. Sunday, breezy and warmer with rain likely, mainly late in the day, high of 82. Currently 68 degrees on your severe weather station, News Radio 610 WTVN.
News Radio 610 WTVN. Columbus's news, traffic, and weather station.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your boys. We'll get wild, wild, wild. Wild, wild, wild. So you think I got an evil?
JC, you are missing it. Welcome back to On Target. I'm your host, Eric, joined today in the LEPD studios. JC, if you're not watching on Facebook, you have to go back and see, because, JC, we gave you the best introduction into your gun of the week that you're going to get. You're going to have to go back and see it. We have myself, Pawpaw, and Big Ed all holding the guns of the week.
Well, I wish I had mine with me, too, and I don't.
Yep. So, JC, we built it up. It is beyond iconic. It hasn't been made for years, and it's just recently been brought back. What is the gun of the week this week?
All right. The gun of the week, and I call this, it's the older Python line. Now, I'm not talking about the new one that was just reintroduced, because I think that's a totally different animal. In appearance, yeah, but really, these guns, the Colt Python, was the epitome of class. It's probably one of the most people consider it one of the most elegant and beautiful of any handgun manufactured, and it's really incredible. So the legendary and iconic Colt Python. So the Python, how this all came about, because believe it or not, this is what we talked a little bit about this morning. You would think, 357 Magnum, that was released in 1935. So you would think, yeah, Colt's a handgun manufacturer. They certainly should have had some of those out there. Well, until World War II broke out, the only 357 Magnum they had was in a single action army, and they had only made 525 of those for the company of Colt. After the war, things settled down, and they said, look, we need to really pump up. Gun sales were totally off because production had stopped from the war, and they said, we really need to get out there and do something. So 1955, which you had already mentioned, such a classic year for so many reasons. But when Smith & Wesson only was 31 miles up the road from the Colt plant, and they came out with their Model 29 and 44 Magnum, which is absolutely beautiful, and back then they were the handmade pieces. Colt said, we gotta up our game. So they took a look around at what they had, and they had some fine pistols. And they had a Colt Officer Match pistol that had only been out since 1952. And it was made for the accuracy, and it was a great choice because the number one police side firearm in the United States was the Colt Police Positive. So they took the officer's model of that in match form. They had to beef it up to handle the extra recoil and strength and pressures of the 357 Magnum. And they came up with this gun, and they put this barrel shroud. Part of the barrel was the first gun to ever have a vent rib, first handgun to ever have a vent rib right from the factory. And it was just all assembled by hand, had a super smooth trigger pull. Everyone just marveled at it. And it just became the classic. And then to top it all off, that was the first gun, the Python, to have the Colt Royal Blue finish. And what they did when they first came out with this gun, first it was manufactured just with a 6-inch barrel, they in blued. But when they made the nickel guns, to have the nickel stick on it, had to have the finest polished finish. So what they did was took guns that were already prepped for nickel, but blued them, and it turned out to be what many people consider the number one of all time blued finish on a firearm. I mean, it's just the Colt Royal Blue was fantastic, and this was the first gun to have it. So when they came out with it, they came out with the 6-inch barrel first, and then they had it shortened down to a 4-inch barrel, and then they made a 2.5-inch barrel for carry purposes. And in between there, at some time, they came out with a 3-inch barrel, which, when you look at it, it's just slightly. It's only a half an inch longer than the other, than the 2.5-inch. But if you have one of those, it really brings a premium. I happened to look in the Blue Book of Gun Values. Just a 3-inch is a 50% premium over any of the other guns. So
wow.
But
you know what?
Smooth trigger, target accuracy right out of the box, and it's just an incredible piece.
And you know what, JC, part of the impetus for having it this week is we were fortunate. Actually, we received in this week one of the new ones, and then we received a collection of 4 pythons this week from an individual.
Wow.
And 3 out of the 4 are already sold. I mean, this all happened within this week. The one that Big Ed was holding in the photo shoot here, the gold-plated one, which is spectacular looking, is the only one still available, and I think it's listed out there online.
And
for us.
that one's not a python.
You're
it's
right.
a king cobra.
It is a king cobra. It is a king cobra.
Which is even more rare.
Right. So great gun of the week, JC. I wish you could be here with us as we have them all over the desk here, but good gun of the week.
They did make an 8-inch barrel too. I didn't want to leave that one out, so that came a little bit later. So, but they now they dropped the nickel, and stainless steel, high polished stainless steel, and the blued were the mainstay. So they made them for 55, and they stopped at 96. The Colt Custom Shop continued making them for a few years, but that all ended. So the classic gun it's an incredible piece.
Yes. All right, when we come back from the bottom of the hour news, we're going to get to our buddy David DeBross. How about David DeVar? How about Derek DeBross? He's calling in. We're going to talk a little about CCW.
And I want to talk to you about
all right, we'll talk about that
one
too.
of the 3 that are purchased.
We'll be right back after the break.
This is Greg Trzynski from
Hey, Facebook fans, how you doing today? These guns are really, really cool. And I'm a little upset because Eric's purchasing one of these. I like the gold one, but a little bit out of my price range.
I don't have that totally up. I just did it
Maggie, I don't know if you know this, but I'm having a hard time keeping Chris away from purchasing that gold gun. Just so you know, if he comes home, I had nothing to do with if he has it. See my daughter, my son-in-law are watching today, my brother in Florida, listening and watching. Paul, Steve Holbrook, Tim Shaw, Sean Bean, how are you, buddy? Sean Calhoun. Yeah, Sean Calhoun sent me a link. Michigan judge authorizes the arresting of people on suspicion of being sick with COVID-19. Is that not ridiculous? On suspicion of being sick, and you'd be jailed for 3 days in Michigan. Only in Michigan.
It'll be quick. Yeah.
Cindy, how are you today? Hope you're not fighting with people over politics on Facebook anymore. So I think we'll just have to take a collection up and have you buy that gun for me there, Eric. Since you're taking the one I wanted.
if you showed up more than once a week, maybe you'd have, first dibs at these things.
Oh my God! You didn't
I
tell
haven't
me.
bought it yet, though. It's just sitting on my desk, hoping to.
That one there, or I'm not really crazy about the gold one. It's kind of classic, but
It's a little.
Hello, my friends. Graduates.
This is John
30
Legends, George
seconds.
Lopez.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
This is uncharted territory.
Life is not fair.
This pandemic has put us in the realest place we've ever been in our lives.
I'm sorry.
Because life, like this graduation, rarely goes as planned.
Yours is a commencement quite different from the one you or anyone else envisioned.
You didn't choose this crisis, you didn't ask for it, but you can choose how you live.
And the world is waiting for what you'll do next.
Commencement, the podcast, celebrating the class of 2020. Available now on the free iHeartRadio app.
Live from LAPD Firearms Range and Training Facility, this is On Target, the latest from the firearms industry, the products and politics that affect your hobby and liberty. This program may not be politically correct, but it is On Target. Now, your host, Eric Delbert.
Welcome back to On
stay
Target.
right there. You ain't going nowhere.
I'm your host, Eric, joined today in the LAPD studios with my father and co-owner, Phil. Is to my left. Big Ed sits to my right, and JC, our good friend
he's
JC.
going to introduce me.
Yes, is on the
That's
line.
to your far right.
Yeah, he's to my JC's to my far right. Pablo, did you have something to say?
I have a question and an observation. Question is, out of the three that you said are sold, would one of those be to you?
Well, it could be. I mean, technically sold means there's been an exchange of money and that type of thing. And there hasn't. None of these have had that associated with me.
Okay. All right. That's the question. The observation is, which I am a stickler on detail, the one that you may be interested in looks like it was in a old type duty holster.
Right.
By Don Hume. They made a lot of the duty holsters. And you have a 6-shot revolver, okay? And this particular holster has places up where by the belt loop to put in extra bullets. Why would they only put 5 bullets up there as extras and not 6?
Well,
all right,
Phil,
there you go.
Phil, that's quite obvious.
All right. Here we go. Yeah, what is
it's not wide enough to hold 6 rounds.
Well, it can be wide.
But they didn't make it that way, Phil.
But why?
But
Why
see,
not?
okay, because when you're in like tactical training,
tactical
with your semi-auto, oftentimes you do a tactical reload where you
okay.
still have one in the chamber, and you drop the mag and you put a fresh one in, right? So in the day, when you had to do a tactical reload in the revolver, you picked out all the ones you shot,
You picked out,
and you left one good, and then
So you don't have the ejector rod dump them all out, right? I see how that works there. Now, this is a question for Big Ed. On the Smith & Wesson, which way does the cylinder rotate?
To the left.
And on the Colt?
To the right.
Okay.
And so you know what? That you just helped your probation.
Probation is done.
I'm seeing the undercurrent here on Facebook.
Turning in my hour sheet.
Turning in your hours? Okay.
So, guys, there are more and more concealed carry holders in Ohio now than ever before. And that means there are more safe, responsible gun owners running across all kinds of situations where they're trying to determine the proper way to handle what they're encountering. So today we thought we would bring on our friend Derek DeBross to help us with some of these questions that we received these past couple weeks. So, Derek, are you there?
I can hear you.
Well, that's good.
I'm getting feedback.
Are you? So one of the things, there's a lot of things that as a concealed carry holder you run up against, and obviously law dictates what you do, but there's some stuff that's kind of a tough one, and so we thought we'd put some of these together. And then Derek, of course, that's his specialty. He specializes in anything related to concealed carry, firearms related, and is an attorney that handles all kinds of that stuff. So I figured he'd be a good one to handle that. Derek, before we get started too, you still have your channel out there where you answer some of these questions?
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel or a munitions law group on YouTube.
And that is, you still handle some of these questions people can write in and so forth?
Yeah, they can write in, they can call, leave messages. We put it in the queue, and we try to get to all of them. We don't always get to all of them. Some of them are repetitive. So we have, I think, around 40,000 followers now. We rolled out a new format about a month ago, and things are going well. We're answering the questions as they come in.
Yeah, that's great, and it's a great place. We're only going to obviously touch upon a few here today, so it's a great resource to go afterwards. So here's some of the top ones we got throughout all the questions. And this one we see a lot, Derek. You're going out with friends. You're not drinking. You decided that you're not having any alcohol tonight, but you find yourself going into a restaurant or approaching a restaurant that has a big sign on the door that says no firearms allowed inside. You're not going to drink in this instance. Are you bound to put that in your car? Do you go ahead and ignore the sign, or do you just simply leave the establishment? What from the letter of the law? What's the recommendation?
Well, if the sign complies with the concealed carry law, let's just assume it does for our hypothetical. It's a crime to carry it into the establishment. You're not allowed to do that. I believe it's a 4th-degree misdemeanor. So it's a pretty low-level misdemeanor, but nevertheless, it's still a crime. Now, if you carry it in there and you're caught even so much as tasting alcohol, it's a 3rd-degree felony if you're armed. So the ramifications are pretty severe. Honestly, what I do, I just turn around, get in my car, and go the other way. I just find another establishment to patronize.
Right, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the Murphy's Law, I mean, even if you are thinking to yourself that, hey, I'm not going to drink anything, what's the harm in this? If you're in there and somebody sees it, or it happens to fall out of a holster or concealment, I mean, you're putting yourself in a bad position. And that you made a good point, Derek, too. This leads to the other question that we get a lot, and JC and I had a long conversation about this earlier. It's not like, if you're carrying a firearm, it's not like driving a vehicle where you could have a beer and not be over the legal limit and still be, able to drive. If you're carrying a firearm, Derek, like you said, you can't have a drop of alcohol, correct?
Not exactly. So if I'm walking down the street, minding my own business, armed, and I happen to have some alcohol in my system, the law says I cannot be intoxicated. So, was intoxicated. However, when I'm in a restaurant and I'm concealing a handgun and I'm consuming alcohol, I can't consume it. The law says I can't consume it. It doesn't say anything about intoxicated. It says no consumption. So because I'm in a restaurant that serves alcohol for open consumption and I have a concealed handgun, that becomes a 3rd-degree felony. So in that instance, not even a drop of alcohol. You get into more nebulous analysis when you're talking about outside of that context, much like you would with a motor vehicle. Like, can you have alcohol in your system? Well, sure, but you can't be intoxicated or under the influence.
So, Dick, let's say you're going out for a beer with your friends after work, and you can typically carry a firearm, and you decide, hey, I'm going to have one beer. Is it safe or is it legal? Do you lock that in your trunk? Then is that enough to go in and consume a beer and then be in that vehicle to drive home? Or
yeah. I mean, my answer is always the same, Eric. You don't mix the two. You don't have to drink. No one's forcing you to drink alcohol. Go drink some water, or get a mocktail or something from the restaurant. If you're going to be responsible enough to carry a firearm, you have to be responsible enough to be sober during that period of time that you're armed. Period.
Yep, and you're exactly right, Derek, because it's not worth risking, that one instance where you, on your way home, you're in an accident or something happens and you're forced to handle the firearm. It's not worth it to jeopardize your license and your ability to own it. So that's good.
You're jeopardizing your life and your potential career. Once you're a felon, your whole life changes, and it's just not. You're right. It's just not worth it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And academically, Eric, we can talk all day long about the law and the fact that you might be able to have alcohol in your system, but ultimately it comes down to practical advice, and the practical advice is don't mix the two.
Right. Simplest way. Ed, you saw there's a question came through on Facebook there?
Yeah, it's Derek Moore is asking. He has a CHL, lives in Franklin County. Next week he's moving to Delaware County, but his CHL doesn't expire until November. How should he go about the updates, is what he's asking.
So, Derek, is there a duty to let the next county know that you moved in regards to CHL?
There is a duty to notify the sheriff. I've actually gone through this years ago, and the way it was handled when I moved to Franklin County from Miami County is I actually went to Miami County, who issued the license. So he would want to go to his current county that issued the license and just get direction from them. They may have changed how they're handling it, but what they did is they reissued me a Miami County license, but it had a Franklin County address on it. And then when it expired, I went to Franklin County to renew it.
Okay. So is there legally any harm? I mean, it's an Ohio concealed carry permit. Is there any harm if that's not done timely, or if someone forgets or it slips their mind?
Not off the top of my head can I can think of the penalty for that. I just, generally speaking, I guess presumptively you could argue that it's a violation of the concealed carry statute, so you're carrying without a valid license, thereby committing a first-degree misdemeanor. That's off the cuff. I don't know if that would hold water in court. I've never heard of anybody being charged with that. And, between you and the listeners, I think I took a year or two before I changed my address on mine, quite honestly, just because I forgot, and it wasn't an issue.
Which I'm sure, especially with Franklin County and Delaware County being so close together.
Does the ID not cover the state of Ohio?
Oh, it does
I
say.
didn't catch that.
Does the ID not cover the state of Ohio?
Does the IP? I don't know what that means.
ID, your permit. It's for the whole state of Ohio, is it not?
Oh, gotcha. Yes, it is. But the law does specifically say that if you move counties, you have to notify the sheriff.
No kidding. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And it's the county that you reside in. So if I leave and go to Delaware, I have to let Franklin County know that I'm leaving. It didn't say there's an obligation to let the other, but I think that's a lot. I think a lot of people don't know that. We try to teach that in our class, but it was in the law. But that's what you have to do. They're the ones who issued. You're leaving the county. You need to let them know that you're leaving.
Derek, there's also a lot of questions about expiration of CCW, and it's kind of really come to a light recently because of COVID, and some of the offices have been closed. Historically, and correct me if I'm wrong, if your CCW license expires, I think, am I correct in thinking that you have 30 days, that almost a grace period, that you could still carry that firearm if you're expired?
Boy, Eric, I haven't looked that law up in a few years. And this is off my memory, so I could be wrong, just so the listeners know. This is just my informal off-the-cuff opinion. I believe there is a grace period, but I also believe if you let the thing expire, you can still go back and get a renewed license well after the expiration date, as long as you have the old license. I could be wrong on that, but I do know they changed that law, I think, in the second go-round.
You're right on. Matter of fact, the Ohio Revised Code 2923, .126A does say that there's a grace period, and during that 30-day grace period after it expires, you are entitled to carry. Your license is still valid. And you're also right, again, as usual, that there is no, expiration date. I've had people in the class go, oh, wow, I took this in 2004. Back then it was only good for 4 years. So, they said, so I said, well, you still have your old license? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, well, it doesn't expire. It shows you've had the training, and you can go back and, sure enough, 10, 12 years later, he just showed his old card. They reissued the new one. He paid his renewal fee, and off on your merry way. So,
which is kind of
probably did a mix check, but there is nothing on that.
It is kind of crazy because you would think, like a driver's license, if it's expired for so long, you have to go back through some of the remedial training, but that is not the case with CHL. Once you've gone through the training, even if it's expired by a few years, you can get that renewed by simply going to the office. Now, things change. They change sometimes annually, and so it is in your best interest to hook up with a store such as us or somebody who can update you on the laws, because they have changed over time.
It just amazes me the lax on how easy it is to get a permit, and then the lax of renewing it, what kind of leeway they give you, but yet they're hammered down with some of the other gun laws that are ridiculous, let alone this NICS thing we just had too.
Right. It's crazy. Something else, Derek, that came through this week, and this is one we get all the time. I have my own opinion, Derek, and you and I might differ on this. If you're in your vehicle, you have a concealed carry permit, and you don't have your firearm with you that day, and you get stopped, what is your advice? What are you legally obligated to do when the officer approaches, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've encountered this personally 2-3 different occasions in my life, and each occasion the cops got the law wrong, and it was pretty interesting to see how they reacted when I actually cited the law to them verbatim. But the law does not require you to notify unless you're armed. It's extremely clear on that. There's no ambiguity about it. It's not gray. However, a lot of officers are just poorly trained. And with that, they may think you have to notify. So it's always my general practical advice, as long as you're not doing anything else that would be criminal, to notify. Because if you have drank and you're driving, and now you've notified, you now have theoretically giving them evidence that you've committed a felony, because drinking and driving with a gun is a felony. So you have to be very, very cautious and aware of your behavior immediately preceding the stop. Does that make sense?
Right, and I mean the thing that we get a lot of the questions in the class is, and personally from a law enforcement standpoint, as soon as we run that registration of that tag, if they're registered to the driver, then we're going to know this person has a CCW. So, but I think it's still common courtesy to tell the officer, hey, look, I have my CCW. I don't have it with me today, just to keep that up front. And I know you're not legally have to do that, but I still think it's not a bad thing to do. If you don't have it on you.
The carrier just needs to be very, very cautious. I do believe, as applied in certain instances, that Ohio law is unconstitutional as a violation of the Fifth Amendment, right against self-incrimination. The law is forcing you to say something that could incriminate you to a crime. You need to be very, very cautious. I had a client once that if he notified, he would have been caught drinking with a gun on him. But if he didn't notify, he'd been violating the law because he didn't notify. So it puts you in a catch-22. And therefore, I think you could attack the law holistically on its face as being completely unconstitutional. But I do know that the General Assembly has been trying to change it.
Right.
But we should not settle for a simple diminishing of the degree of the offense. It should be completely stricken from the books because it does not resolve the Fifth Amendment issues.
Right. Derek, are you able to hang on with us for another minute after the break?
Sure.
Okay. We come back from the break. Sure? We're going to get to another minute with Derek. Had a couple more questions come in. We're on Target, broadcasting live from the studios of LAPD Firearms and Range. We'll be right back after the break.
Hey, anybody out there have any questions they want to ask Derek? Type them in, and I'll get them out there for you. I'll read them to him so he can answer. It's not too lax or incidental. We at Buckeye Firearms Association spent 15 years improving the very discretionary law. Well, I wasn't necessarily speaking of your gun laws that you guys put together for the firearms there, Steve. I was referring to some other things that have happened and I've noticed in my career.
Hi, this is Scott.
And Melinda Grassett, owners of Columbus Mobility Specialists.
Did you know that we're the only custom modification shop in Ohio for the disabled?
We can adapt cars, boats, scooters, vans, and even lawnmowers.
We will service and install and repair any types of lift for your vehicles, including hand controls, wheelchair lifts, electronic driving controls, and stair lifts for the home.
For over 15 years, people have relied on Columbus Mobility Specialists.
ColumbusMobility.com or 614-825-89.
Okay, Steve, I
if you're injured on the job, call the lawyers at Elk & Elk. 1-800-ELK, Ohio.
Your ABC6 first warning weather. For today, fog this morning, then a mix of sun and clouds. By the afternoon, warm and more humid. Slight chance of showers, high of 78. Tonight, cloudy and mild with a few spotty showers, likely low of 61. For Sunday, breezy and warmer with rain likely mainly late in the day, high of 82. Currently 69 degrees on your severe weather station, News Radio 610 WTVN.
News reports on the top and 30 minutes past the hour. Breaking news immediately. News Radio 610 WTVN.
Welcome back to On Target. I'm your host, Eric, joined today in the LEPD studios, Dancing Paw Paw right there.
Who sings that?
Chubby Checkers. Who else?
You didn't know it.
No, I was going to say that.
Okay.
Big Ed says to my right, JC is on the phone line with us. Paw Paw, I think that was a request to have that song for you, didn't you? Didn't a listener, didn't it, Cindy, want Paw Paw dancing to
No,
that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was a
no one knows ahead of time.
I don't know. Maybe there's a leak.
Play.
Maybe there's a leak.
Emily is leaking the
That's
information.
Right. Well, so guys, we were talking to our good buddy Derek DeBross, who is an attorney on anything gun related, CCW. Derek, one of the questions that came up, and it came up from a Lori. If you have, and I think I know the answer to this, but if you have a concealed carry permit and you keep a firearm in your car locked in your glove box or locked in a secure location in your car, and your 18-year-old son is driving it, what are the potential ramifications from that? Oh, did we lose him?
Oh man, I wanted to
Oh,
hear
that
the
was a
answer
good
to that.
question,
That's
too.
a
No,
good question. I had a good one for him, too.
Great question.
I wanted. Well, he wasn't so sure he could hang on.
Yeah, so maybe that.
Yeah.
If we get him back here, we'll have to pose that question because I am curious on that.
That is, yeah.
Yep. What other questions here do we run? I mean, there were so many that came in. JC, you and I talked about that we get this question a lot with the advent of the AR pistols. Is it legal to carry those in your car?
It is a pistol, and it wouldn't make any difference since it is a pistol, whether it was a little 22 Derringer from North American Arms or whether it's the AR. It's a pistol, and you're allowed to carry it. Not just it, but if you have 2 or 3 of them on you, you can carry those too. There's no limit to the number of handguns. Once you're in the car, it's concealed, and there you go. So, yeah, I would certainly, if you pulled somebody over, I would certainly be askance at somebody having 2 or 3 of those in the car with them. But that doesn't make it illegal. So, yeah, it's a pistol.
Yep.
So.
It would be, like you said, if you get pulled over with one loaded, there's definitely going to draw some attention, but you're legally within your right.
Well,
Yeah, and that other question, though, I do think that's because when we teach in the class, we say, look, don't let anybody drive, but things happen in life, and you forget that it's in there, it's locked in, or maybe in the console, and somebody else is using your car, get into a wreck, all of a sudden there's a gun, there's a kid, there's a none of this is good. So, that responsibility of being prudent and, we teach in our class, if someone else is borrowing your car, the police don't know who's in that car, and it comes up that someone in that car could have a CCW, and I tell them, do not be diving into the glove box looking for the registration and stuff if you borrow my truck. Keep your hands on the wheel, inside your truck, and there's no gun in the car.
I think a lot of it comes down to the officer that might be stopping you is his discretion. Use a little bit of common sense too.
Right.
If the person that you let drive your car doesn't have a clue that the firearm is in there and is secured and everything, I think it's up to the officer too sometimes.
Well, we're going to get an answer to that question, and we'll talk about it next week when we come back. But next week, guys, it's all about AK-47s, and we're bringing on the foremost expert in AK-47s, Vince Buckles.
I won't be here.
You might know him from Sons of Guns. So you're not going to be here next week. Mark that down.
I've got a wedding that I have to attend. It's kind of mandatory, being that it's my son.
Oh, congratulations!
We are just hearing this now.
No, you're not. I told
this is great.
So guys,
and it's my mother's 100th birthday party. So.
Well, all right.
Now that's worth it.
Wow.
Fantastic.
So you're going to have to fill in for me, John.
Great, Ed.
So, guys, thanks for spending the last hour with us. We are back open. The range is back open. Limited hours. We're still closed Sunday, Monday, but in a couple weeks, it is going to be back full force, normal hours. But right now, you can still come get in the showroom and jump up on the range and so forth. So stay safe, stay healthy, and we will look forward to seeing you back same time, same place next week.
And watch your 6.
All right.
From the Elk and Elk Studios, Elmeron, a bladder pain medication, is causing loss of vision. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. News Radio 610 WTVN.
You're home doing your part, but you're not alone. We're in this together. So if you've been thinking about leasing a new car, think about Roto. Nathan, the CEO of Roto, created this revolutionary app to give people a better leasing experience without having to go to a dealership. With Roto,